Good evening to Griffin Nation. My name is Jessica Day, and it's a pleasure and an honor to join everyone here on Zoom for tonight's special event. The Chestnut Hill College Athletics Women's History Month discussion panel is part of a campus-wide celebration. Tonight, we have the opportunity to celebrate, reflect, reconnect, and re-energize as we welcome generations of Griffins to join this great conversation. Just a reminder before we get started, we are recording tonight's conversation for future use. If at any time you have a question or would like to join the conversation, please feel free to use the chat or raise your hand. I'd like to begin this evening by welcoming our panel members, and I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. I would be remiss not to kick it off with 2011 Hall of Famer Janice Kuklick, who I'm honored to introduce tonight. For those of you who may have just caught the gist, but for our current student athletes and former student athletes, something I'd like for you to understand is Janice put so many things in motion for you to have the opportunities you have today. She is instrumental to the history of Chestnut Hill College athletics. And so, like I said, I would be remiss not to kick it off right with Janice. She's our former athletic director, apparently hired our current athletic director, which I may not have known. So a little tad bit of history for me. She was our physical education chair and professor, and then also coached, I believe, field hockey, women's lacrosse, and badminton. Am I correct? Did I catch the?
That is correct. That's correct. Yeah.
Excellent. And Janice will be hosting with me this evening. So then I'm just going to talk my also fellow administrators. I have Denise Wisniewski, our senior women administrator and assistant AD for compliance on the call as well. We have Sarah Doherty Machcinski on the call. She's our assistant athletic director for academic success and community engagement. She's a former women's tennis alumni. We have two alums on the call that have opted to be into the panel, and that is Danielle Knott, 2013 women's tennis. And then we have Kelly Dennis. Is it Sipocz? I'm sorry, Kelly. Really sorry.
No, that's okay. It's typos. And sorry, my son's here with me.
2014 and Chestnut Hill College Hall of Fame 2020 women's tennis player. For the current student athletes that have opted into the panel, I'm going to ask that you do a quick introduction for yourself. I'll just shout you out by name if you wouldn't mind sharing what sport you play, what year you are at the college, and then what's your major. I think that'll be a great way to introduce you. I'm going to kick it off with our student athlete athletic committee president, Devin Horner.
Hi, I'm Devin. I'm a senior. I play softball and major is elementary education and special education.
Takara Wigfall.
Hi, my name is Takara. I'm on the bowling team. I am a senior and my major is communication with the double minor in marketing and religious studies and philosophy.
Rachel Milan.
Hi, I'm Rachel Milan. I'm a junior and I'm early education and special education.
Women's basketball player.
Oh yeah, women's basketball.
And then we got Leah Miller next.
Hi, I'm Leah. I'm a junior on the basketball team and an exercise science major.
Then we have Mara Conroy.
Hi, I'm Mara. I'm also a junior on the women's basketball team and my major is psychology.
Lily Reed.
Hi, I'm Lily. I'm a junior on the softball team. I am an accounting major and math minor.
And then we have Ashley Watson.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm a sophomore on the women's lacrosse team, and I'm studying accounting.
And then last but not least, we have Shaylin Banks.
Hi, I'm Shaylin. I'm a freshman on the women's lacrosse team, and I am dual majoring with history and secondary ed with a minor in special education.
Thank you all for joining. But like I said earlier, this is an open conversation. So I hope that, we can each engage, but those members of our community have decided to participate in the panel. So that's why I did introduce them. Next, I'd like to kick it over to Janice, if she wouldn't mind giving us a little history of Chestnut Hill College athletics. Some information may surprise our current student athletes to know. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing with us a little bit about what your insight is from the earlier days.
Oh, sure. And first off, I want to thank everybody for coming and being part of this, and also for me being invited, because I spent almost 40 years, I guess it was 39 years at the college, and it was like my family. It was my home away from home, and I have so many great experiences, and it just was an important part of my life. And I'm just honored to be a part of this little panel, and hope to, sort of spread some of my enthusiasm about the college to you guys too. So I first of all, I want to say how important I think it is that, that we know about the origin or the history of, where things came from, things that we connect with. I think it's really important because then we get a better, appreciation of where you are now. And I got to say, I don't know if you know much about the history of the college, but it started in 1924. And Sister Carol and some of the other sisters, I see some of the other great sisters there too. Hi, you guys. But you can chime in too. But in 1924, is when this college, it was called Mount St. Joseph's at the time. And it's just amazing that the Sisters of St. Joseph, way back in 1924, had enough insight to include tennis courts, a gymnasium, and a swimming pool in their plans. I mean, I just find that mind-boggling for, so far, such a long time ago, that they had that insight, how important it was for their women to be engaged in physical activity. And actually the first the basketball team was the actual first team, to a first Chestnut Hill athletic team. There weren't a lot of schools that we played. I think we had a record of 2-0. They played 2 games. I think they won 2 games. So, I mean, it was very small at that time. And tried to picture 5th floor St. Joe's, that's where the original gymnasium was. And they said that when they played basketball and practiced up there, like the lights in the dorm rooms would sort of flicker on and off and stuff. So from there, it went to the gymnasium in the basement of 49. So it's just this history from 1924, and like I came in 77. So I saw I had a lot of the old stuff, you know what I mean? When I came, we still had the original gym, and a lot of the uniforms were still really antiquated then too. A lot of the changes came a little bit after that, but there were some major changes that took place, like the name of the college, we used to be called the Mounties, and now we're the Griffins. And we used to be brown and gold, and now we're scarlet and white. The number of teams, the conferences, the different conferences that we played in, from being in all women's conferences to, conferences that, we were trying to be sort of equal in our size, to actually coming into the Ncaa and then actually going in Division II. I mean, so there's lots of changes. And if you could even imagine, I mean, I know, like Margot was with me from like way back, but you can tell them, Margot, how we went from game to game. We used to stuff you guys in the back of our cars. I had a little Honda. I'd stick 2 in the back in the hatchback. We had 4 in the back. I mean, that's how we got to games. Now you're traveling in buses and you have overnights and things. It really has grown from a very small but very important past. I mean, where we started, when you think of Title IX opening up the doors for all these women, hey, Chestnut Hill College was there before Title IX. I mean, it did things for its women. It didn't have a great budget. It didn't have a lot of money, but it did what it could and provided. And I got to say, I don't want to be babbling on, because I really want to give you guys time to ask questions or to, whatever. But it just was amazing, how we've grown and what the insight was, and that the budget, even though, we didn't have the best uniforms, we might have had tunics, we might have had these old hand-me-down things that we wore, and the sticks might not have been great, that it still provided great competition, great camaraderie, great fun. And that's what it is all about even today. We had championships, it was against schools that were probably, well, very compatible with us. There was no recruiting. Most of our teams were made up of kids that nobody heard of a lacrosse stick before. When they started playing lacrosse, I said, people would be walking down the hall, and if they could jog or if they looked like they had athletic legs, I'd go, oh my God, do you play anything? And they'd go, no. I go, well, come on, you're coming out for lacrosse. And you know what? They started, and you know what? They did very well. And you know what? They loved it too. Just like, the players today love it, but have a little bit, more in their past, I guess, to, bring them to the table with a little bit more. But it's that same enthusiasm. We had enthusiasm then, just as you guys have it now. And that was all the insight of the Sisters of St. Joseph. And I got to mention Sister Carol Jean, who, in 2000, I guess it was before, so it must have been in like 1998 to 2000. She had this huge fundraising, event that went on, and she got money for your new gym, your Sargenti Arena, and provided so much for athletics because she was an ex-athletic director as well and understood the importance of it, and just what it does for a college's atmosphere and also for the students, just what it does for them as well. So there were lots of changes. If you guys want to know anything, I hope you ask questions. I don't want to babble on because I don't want, this to, just be me. There's just a lot of people on the panel and stuff, but I am very happy to be here and happy to answer any questions. And it's just an exciting thing.
Well, for our current students and maybe some younger alum, when Janice references the gym in Fournier, she means your new fitness center. That was the basketball arena up until, I believe, 1998, 1999, 2000, like Janice was saying, when Sargenti went in. So picture up until, I believe, Cafferty started in 2010, that was the space where people could still practice. And so that fitness center actually used to be down in the security office, if you can visualize that, where you get your IDs. So it is a very different place. And and the college went co-ed in 2003. And similarly for, like I said, our younger alum and our current students, we made that big transition from Division III to Division II in the 2007-2008 school year. So a lot of our history is still in motion, which is a pretty cool thing to say.
It is. And can I just add something about that gym? Because we played in that gym for everything. We had our PE classes in there, but all our sports practice. Can you imagine playing basketball in this? It was like a little box, and the only room where we had wooden benches along the side, and you had to pull your feet in, along because on the sidelines, because your feet would be hanging over. If you weren't paying attention, you'd get hit with a ball or a player would land on your lap. The ceilings were so low in volleyball, they were continually hitting the ceiling, with a bump. And then we played badminton in there. So there were lines all over the place too. We played badminton in there, and the condensation was so bad in there. Also, we had to cancel matches sometimes because the floor was wet if the weather was pretty bad out there. But that was the original gym. And, we did with it. We managed with it. But it was time to move on. It was time. And I'll tell you why it was time to move on, because everybody else moved on too. And we were going to be left behind if we didn't. So, the conference we were in was the PIAIW, and we were in that for years and very successful because it was made up of very compatible schools with ours. But then eventually some of those, the bigger schools started thinking, we're going to get in this. NCAA looks pretty good to us, and they would go. And then we still kept the PIAIW. And then some of the smaller schools started going into the NCAA too. And it left very few in our conference. And eventually that conference was folded. And that's when we went into the NCAA, which was a great move for us. It provided a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, it gave us that push that we needed, because we couldn't compete with anybody without, changes in our equipment, changes in our transportation, changes in our facilities, changes how, we did some. So that was where we really started to grow. So it was a really cool transition. We just did it gradually and just, it worked out really well.
I'm going to shout out Christa Murphy, who just put in the chat that she's originally from Northern New Jersey, but played in an AAU basketball tournament in high school that had games at Penn, LaSalle, and Chestnut Hill. When she got the job at Chestnut Hill years later, her dad remembered standing pressed against the sidelines of the old gym down in the basement of Fournier Hall. Seeing her teammates and I flying into the mats, going for those loose balls and rebounds. No match to Sargenti, but always stood out in his mind. So definitely funny how the community is so close-knit even in these days.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make this a very simple kickoff question. Let's talk about favorite places on campus for the finalists. Let's start with Takara. I'm going to just shout you out, and then for the rest, I'll let you sort of chime in as you'd like. So favorite place on campus, Takara?
I would probably say my favorite place on campus is McCaffrey, only because like that's where everyone is like comes together, and it's a lot of events that are held there, and that's where you see a lot of the campus community having like they'll have the showing off your talents and stuff, karaoke nights. So it's the best times that happen in McCaffrey, and it's good food. So.
I'm going to put Kelly Dennis on the spot. Kelly, what was your favorite spot on campus?
I got to go with the tennis courts. I mean, as a student athlete, it was pretty lucky to have your home base on campus. And I'll never forget, teams would kind of switch, the basketball team would come and watch us and we'd go and watch them. And to have the whole men's basketball team there or men's lacrosse team there screaming, shouting, made it always fun. So I felt always really lucky that people didn't have to travel to our matches and that we were right there on campus. So,
Leah Miller, where's your favorite spot on campus?
Mine's right along the same lines. It's got to be Sargenti. It's just put your headphones in, and I'm good for hours.
Janice, where's your favorite spot? I have to know.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, my favorite spot? Oh, I got to say the swimming
I knew it was going to be tough.
That swimming pool's been there for so long. I mean, I did a lot of teaching in it. And I mean, I know you guys probably don't know, but we used to have a swim requirement. In order to graduate, you had to pass a swim test. So everybody had to learn how to swim. And so it was, I really liked this. It's still there, right? But they're not using it. Do we use it? No, okay.
No.
Denise. Hi, Denise. I can recognize you. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Yeah. So anyway, I like the pool, but of course, I liked Sargenti when that was done because it was certainly such a great. It was so much better than where we were. So I did really like that a lot too.
It's funny that you say the pool because I imagine there's a lot of us alum on here that have not as positive memories of that pool and struggling through that swim test and shredding while you're sitting there counting down the minutes. So funny that we have different memories of that same little.
Yes, that is very true. Very true.
So let's move on. So does anybody want to share their best memory or favorite moment at Chestnut Hill College? I'm putting some people on the spot here, so I apologize.
I'll go.
Oh, perfect, Devin. Thank you for volunteering because I'm seeing some nervous faces as I'm just shouting people out.
Probably qualifying for playoffs my sophomore year. That was a really exciting day and game, and just the environment of playoffs was fun. It reminded me of kind of like travel ball with the double headers and just the big festival and everything. Definitely one to remember.
Lily Reed, do you have anything in addition to that?
Yeah, that was a really exciting time for us, especially being that we were one of the first people to go. There was a lot of emotion and everything going into it. It was nice to spend that with those seniors for their final going. So yeah.
Sarah Doherty Machcinski's been hiding on my second page of the gallery view, so now I'm going to put her on the spot.
It's hard to choose just one. I know I hate to be that person, but so much of my life happened there in different stages, and I think my overall favorite thing about Chestnut Hill is like my lifelong friends I made there. So and just the happy memories that we have together there. So I'm copying out on that answer.
Danielle, do you have a favorite memory or a moment that you'd like to share?
When we first made the NCAA tournament, that was pretty awesome just because what do you guys call New Hall now? I forget what the real name of the dorm is. I forget what the name of the New Hall is now, but I remember the guys and the girls team, we both was waiting there for like an hour for it to be streamed, and we were so excited for our school to be up there. So that was one of my favorite memories.
Danielle, you just dated yourself to a very unique time period at Chestnut Hill College where you're calling Fitzsimmons New Hall, because that was the infamous name for a few years and hard habits to break. Would anybody like to discuss a little bit about maybe a favorite female athlete? Who have you looked towards for motivation, maybe in some of your experiences, whether it be on the field or off the field?
I guess come back. Serena Williams.
Okay.
She's like a big name in like sports and for females.
I appreciate that. Denise, do you have a female athlete that you sort of look, towards for some motivation or inspiration?
Not really, not a favorite athlete. I did, actually, let me come back to that. I've just lost my train of thought there, but no, I don't definitely have like, a particular female athlete. No.
Ashley Watson, I'll go up to you. Now you can't hide any longer. I see you on my front screen now.
I would say Brianna Stewart. I grew up in Connecticut, so she was like a big like name, like when she first came to UConn, and I just feel like ever since she was like younger, she's been like awesome player. Cool. There's up to.
Definitely a great one to look up to. She's out in Seattle now. Seattle, am I correct? Shaylin, I see you now. Okay, Shaylin, who's somebody you look up to and who motivates you?
So I come from a really long line of lacrosse players, and my aunt actually played at UVA. And one of my earliest like memories of lacrosse was watching her play in her first NCAA. And
cool.
Literally, like my dream growing up was I'm going to be just like her. Then I realized I was really slow and couldn't run, so I was never going to be a midfielder. So like I changed my dream to be an okay goalie and just do the best that I could at my position. But just like watching her when I was growing up was like a really big like motivation to just like not get to her level, but like kind of just like feel like I could compare to her at all and just like continue her legacy.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Yeah. Cool.
Janice, do you have somebody you look to for motivation?
Probably not at this point. I mean, I'm a very self-motivated person, so I don't really look to any professional athletes or anything like that. I just sort of, I grew up with athletics and grew up with, physical education and all that kind of stuff. So I'm for motivation, I sort of put it on myself to do my thing and stuff like that. So yeah. Yeah. Well, can I ask them, Jess, do any of you have any questions about, anything in the past, like, or, any changes or how you got to be where you were and, about any of the programs? I mean, we had archery, we had golf. I mean, not in my time, but, there were archery teams, there were golf teams, there was, softball was a sport, and then they dropped it and then it came back again. So there's quite a bit of history on the sports. And how many do we have now?
We have 18.
Yeah, that's quite a substantial amount. And it started out that for a long time, we had 7 women's sports, which was pretty good for a school our size, to be able to fill rosters for those 7 and do fairly well. We had some great years, and then we really had some real stink bombs too. So, it depended on, I guess different years, how many kids we got. It depended on, coaches. Here's another thing too. When in our day, when I was around, we didn't have any full-time coaches, you guys. It was all, people that were part-time. So some of them were not really great coach material, but they were all we really had. And they came after a hard day's work, and they came and coached, and then they left and went home and stuff. So it was sort of hard to keep track of the student athletes, or to keep them on the same page and stuff. And that when we transitioned into having them part-time and then becoming full-time, that made a huge difference in just, keeping the teams together and keeping the, staying on their academics and whatever. Because, Chestnut Hill has always had that emphasis on the student athlete, that the athlete be academically strong as well as athletically too. But if anybody has any questions, there's just a lot of neat stuff. I don't know if you're interested, but if you are, we can hit any of it, because it's just really fun talking about it.
No, can I just chime in what Janice just said? The other thing that I have seen that is different in the sports athletic at the college has been back when I went into it was at college, which was in the late 70s. We played multiple sports. There were times that you would play, volleyball in the summer, in the fall, basketball or badminton in the winter time, and then softball in the springtime. Now, kids are basically choosing one. I heard a couple of the girls talking about, playing two sports, which is good too. But back then it was basically a fun thing. It wasn't, you weren't a diehard, although you loved the sport, you loved the camaraderie, but you played all season long.
And we didn't have training programs, and they would have to do too. Yeah.
No, we just had practices, and that was it. The other thing too, you guys each have your own uniform for each of the different sports. The uniform we used was transferred from volleyball to basketball to the next one, so it was the same uniform that was shared among, other sports. And then the other thing that was different, when Janice was talking about the gym down, in Fournier. And you basically, if you were playing basketball, you basically stretched out your hand and you could touch the wall, so it was a pretty tight area, but it did its job, and we had great times there.
Denise, do you have your hand up?
Yeah. So I was just going to say, so when Janice hired me back in 2003, Jesse and I have been there about the same amount of time. We had 7 women's sports, and men's basketball was our first men's sport. And there was 3 of us in the athletic department. And that was pretty much, it's just so different, the amount of sports we've added over time. And I was thinking a day like today with the rain, the floor would have been really slippery in that old gym. A day like today would have been really bad down there. But, it's just been a lot of change in the 18 years that is. So, yeah.
And Denise, you maybe want to talk a little bit about the changes in the weight room. I'll just start off by saying in my time, and that was pre-Denise's time. And then Denise, you can sort of talk about the weight rooms now. Weight room, we never even thought about girls needing to work out for their sports to begin with. But then when we started doing it a little bit, we had a weight room in a closet.
Yeah.
We had a weight room in a room like one of the lounges or whatever. Yes. And the only equipment that it was equipment that, maybe somebody was cleaning out their garage or cleaning out their basement. And that's where we would get the equipment. And we didn't have a trainer, so we didn't set up any program. It was just really for anybody to use. So go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, we did. We did get money from, was it Independence Blue Cross, to put some equipment in where the current security area is. So that, but that was such a small area, and we quickly outgrew that. But we didn't have strength and conditioning coaches back then. So it was just the coach pretty much put a program together and said, go in there and do this. And it wasn't until, sometime later that we were required to have strength and conditioning coaches. So, yeah.
And not to make it sound like we weren't, adequate or whatever. Everybody was like that. There were no schools that had training programs or whatever until, as the years progressed and, as they went into NCAA and things grew or whatever. But we all came from the same mold pretty much. And we all grew pretty much the same, from the same very basic stuff.
And I think even, we were co-ed by the time, the first year I started there, but we were still in the all women's conference for a lot of the sports. So that was a transition to go from having to go from all women's conference to the Ncaa was the Northeast Atlantic Conference we went to after that. So
we were in a couple in ECAC and then the NEAC. Yeah,
AWCC and all that. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And when we first started out too, when we're driving in the cars, we only really went maybe, the furthest we went was an hour drive. The rest were all the local colleges, all the colleges around us like Cabrini and Gwen and Mercy, and they were all a stone's throw away. But then eventually we're traveling 4 and 5 hours to get to a place. And that's when really we had to move to the buses and whatever. So it was a big change.
Danielle, I think you were trying to talk earlier, so I apologize. Danielle, what were you going to say?
I was just saying that some things that I've never thought of when I was in school.
Somebody needs to mute because we're hearing everything you're saying. Somebody needs to mute.
Yeah, they do.
Just an opportunity to just play tennis for free, which is crazy to say now, but tennis is expensive. And to even find someone to play with now, it's crazy to think about because, we played, 6 days out of the week. And even have access to icing after a match or icing after practice. You don't get that after you graduate. So you guys should definitely appreciate that now while you have it, because when you're in the ability to travel, especially now with COVID, when we're not really allowed to travel. So going to all these places and meeting new people is definitely something that I miss a lot.
Yeah, I absolutely think you're right, Danielle. When you're in the moment, you sort of just assume that that's how life goes, and it changes quick. And then you realize that, that sort of ache in your shoulder, nobody's going to help ice you out and give you, hot pack to get that to feel a little bit better. So,
So Danielle, in our days too, when we didn't have an athletic trainer, so you figure we have coaches that aren't really coaches, but people that maybe had some experience playing. So you sprained an ankle, and that coach pretty much taped an ankle. They didn't know how to tape an ankle, but they taped an ankle. And so if you had a hurt knee, you got a taped ankle, because pretty much all they knew, they might have known the ankle, but anything else was whatever. So, and we got, you had to run up to the cafeteria and get ice packs and stuff. It just was a whole different thing. You just don't have the care that you have today. Even the concussion thing that you guys have now, it's just so great. It's this wonderful, those necessities, I guess. Yeah. So Danielle's right. You do have to appreciate that for sure.
Leah, did you have your hand up? Did you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, this goes with pretty much what we're talking about, but I just kind of want to know how whenever you guys started to make some of the bigger steps of going into the NCAA and adding more teams and how did that affect the college and the overall energy of everything? Did it create kind of an intense excitement, something like that?
Yeah, well, I can answer that, and then maybe Denise, if you want to say some stuff too, or maybe even Jesse too, but most definitely. Well, I think the biggest thing was when the men started coming too. Besides the NCAA was great because we were at a time that we were desperately in need of something, because the PAIAW was folding. So really, we were a group of teams that had no conference or whatever. So when we got into the NCAA, and the NCAA sort of forced us to make some changes, that brought so much excitement. And it also made students want to come. Do you know what I mean? Would you want to come to a college that was, like an all girls college. I'm not taking away from that, but, had a gym that, your high school gym was better than the gym you were coming to play for at a college. So that's what we tried to get everyone to see. And it made a big difference. So it brought, and those things just sort of, domino effect, that once we went into the NCAA, and once we started upgrading our facilities, and once men started coming, and once we got into a pretty decent conference, and then from there even went into Division II, things were bubbled. Sargenti Arena was packed, and we had cheerleaders, and the sisters all had little cheering sessions. It made a huge difference. It really brought the place, it brought it back to life. It was a shot in the arm that it needed. And and you got to give the administration, Sister Carol, their insight to do that, because that's what really, it was a big thing. To make a decision from an all women's college to admit men, that's a big decision to make. And but it was something that really brought us around.
Yeah, and I think even the opening of the fitness center. So I'm a 2014 graduate, and that new fitness center happened during my time there. And I would say the camaraderie and the excitement around getting in the fitness center and doing weights and that sort of stuff was exciting when it first opened. And then you start doing the workouts, and you take it for granted. But but no, I think looking back, it definitely brought the camaraderie, and it was an exciting place to go.
And similarly, we unveiled the new logo in the late, 2000s. I think I was a junior, so maybe 2008, 2007. The Griffin that today was not the Griffin, that represented us before. And so that really established a whole different type of brand for the college, which was exciting. And we had a celebration, and it's been really exciting just to see how the branding of the college has taken off in some different ways, and how, as we walk through the hallways, you can pretty quickly recognize, the different branding and the logos of the college today.
Yeah, you can do that. Jess, it's funny you say that, because today I wore my original women's tennis t-shirt that I got back in 2007. And my husband makes fun of me because I'll wear t-shirts till they're they look like Swiss cheese. But I was just laughing because I walked into the fitness center. I was I wonder if these kids would even understand that this was our original logo.
Yeah. It was the Griffin that you see more on the college seal, and around the more academic side of things is what we used also in athletics. And so it just took a whole different dynamic and a lot of a shift to introduce the new Griffin logo, and some additional colors. I think gold became much more represented at that time. And we really started to focus on our identity, within the athletic department, and promoting that throughout the local community and within the region. And it's gone a long way. So it's just funny that some of the younger alum or even current students may not recognize that the Griffin has changed even in the last 2 decades.
Yeah, the old Griffin costume, I can remember that too. He was a different looking little guy. But it was, he just was so old. He was held together with athletic tape. He just was so old. And so I can remember when we got the new updated one. It was really, it was really cool when he, made his debut. So it was neat.
I don't want to skip anybody. Danielle, Mario, you still have your hands up technically. So if you have something to say, I don't want to not give you the opportunity to speak, but I wasn't sure if that's pre-existing. Okay. So I think an interesting conversation came up before, as I heard Janice and Denise talking a little bit about our fitness center and how that's evolved. And I guess I think, a piece of conversation that might be really interesting to talk about in this Women's History Month conversation, maybe for the next 10 minutes or so, is what just occurred at the NCAA basketball tournaments. For those of you who may have missed the news, it was quite the buzz, that the women's teams had access to essentially a few free weights and some yoga mats, whereas the men's team had essentially a full-fledged gym with as much equipment as they could have desired. And so after the buzz of social media hit around, they made some appropriate adjustments, but certainly the message was sent. So I guess I'd like to open up that conversation if anybody'd have anything that they'd like to add to that, if they have any insight or opinions on sort of that scenario.
I just think it's really interesting because it's not something that, like, before I got here, I had never really like weightlifted before because my high school had the same mentality that like girls don't really have to weightlift. And like our girls' sports were just sort of there so that we didn't get in trouble with Title IX. But I think it's interesting that like it's really important in college to actually like maintain like the muscle mass that you have, and that they did like, it's the NCAA, it's a not-for-profit like company, to think that they didn't think it was important when they have us do these nutrition panels, they have us look into like keeping ourselves healthy. And then they give a team that the girls teams made it just the same as the boys teams made it. And to think that like they're on the same competitive level, but they didn't think it was that important to give them actual like resources. And they thought a yoga mat was sufficient to keep themselves at like tip top shape. I just think that's like kind of ridiculous as a thought. And the fact that like they thought that was okay in the first place, it should have never been a conversation. It should always just be give the same like funds and resources to both programs. But the fact that that was a conversation still just like astounds me.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that you feel like maybe your high school experience was relatively similar too, because I do think that this is a very deep-rooted issue that still needs to continue to evolve. And as we're listening to, Janice and some of the other alum talk about the history and how the evolution has continued to occur, it's interesting to see it even at the highest levels. Does anybody else sort of have anything they'd like to add there?
I was going to say, I think it was ridiculous how like blatant it was. Like, it just like, they didn't even like, they tried to like defend themselves, and like, it just really didn't even work. Like, they had nothing to back themselves up with.
Yeah. Sometimes just acknowledging the mistake and apologizing goes a long way.
Yeah, I saw a quote from the head coach at Georgia Tech, and she was saying, this is the 3 largest weeks of the entire year. And the fact that you couldn't even, your marketing team, like, they make a lot of money for someone to not realize what they're doing is not correct. So I agree. It was completely blatant. It was wrong. And I'm not sure what it will take for them to realize that, men and women are equal. And just from the food and from the athletic equipment available, it was just embarrassment, to be honest, and they should really be embarrassed.
I have to imagine that Christa Murphy must not be able to actually speak right now, because I know Christa has a lot of feelings on this after having talked to her earlier. So I'm thinking she might join us in the chat. So feel free. Samara, welcome. I didn't see you on there.
Hello. I just wanted to say it just was crazy to me, and not like it was new or actually really surprising, but just knowing the progress that we've made, and just keeping our eyes looking forward, and just always aiming for progress, and then continuing to see that every time we're a couple steps forward, it's like we get 10 steps backward in the same areas. Just because, thinking about my experience with athletics at Chestnut Hill, track team, I think track is like, it's super co-ed. Like, we do everything together. Like, it's not like, we're split like softball and baseball or whatever it is. Like, we're all together, guys and girls. And we had the same expectations that our coaches had for the guys. Like, when we worked out, we did everything together. We had the same access to everything. Like, we did everything together. If they're doing 20 reps, guess who else is doing 20 reps? I am. Like, we're all doing the same thing. So just, I don't know the person's name who was saying it earlier, but just like, it's it's crazy because you think that everybody has these expectations and saying that, oh, she comes from high school. And it's like my high school, we work out and we all had to lift, like on the women's basketball team, any girls sports team that you were on. But then so to me, it's like in my head, it's like, oh, we're doing good. It's progress. And then, hearing things like that, it's like, wow, I'm super underwhelmed by what I thought was progress. And then to see, situations like this, where it's like, you only changed something because people spoke up or, things like that. And even the stuff that was handled, it wasn't just handled by them. That took for Dick's Sporting Goods to reach out and say, we have a truck full of equipment and we're bringing it over, drop the address. And for some other sporting goods places and things like that. And just to know, we already were, there already was this kind of uprising and this anger about the weightlifting and all that. But then it's the food, and then it's the little like bags that they were given and all of that stuff. And then to hear people defend it also, it's like, oh, well, the guy's bringing more money, so women don't bring in enough money. That's what you get. I'm like, it's kind of not how Title IX works. So it's very interesting to just see areas of progress, but then also seeing us work ourselves backwards.
Yeah, the TV contract conversations, very interesting when it talks about men and women and how much money they bring in. I believe, I can't remember who made note of it, the Georgia Tech coach that talked about it, blatantly put it out there. We still bring in $500 million in TV contracts. So our value is still there. That's a ton of money. And so to not be recognized in a similar capacity is really shameful. So I really think a lot of the coaches of these programs are doing a really good job to speak out and, sort of really be very clear about some of the differences that they're seeing. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add maybe on that scenario?
I thought it was interesting bringing up the food, because how bad does it have to be? It's not that expensive. Like the men got buffet style food during a pandemic, which is a whole nother issue. But to give the women little boxes of food as athletes that literally their whole day right now is working out and making sure they're ready to play, and you're gonna feed them pretty much a peanut butter and jelly sandwich lunch bag and be like, you should be fine, when you're using all of your energy to make sure that you are representing your school in the best way. I just think that was the weight room, at least they gave them weights, but the food, there's no way that you can compare what the men were given to what the women were given without it being a smack in the face. So I just feel like everything they did was just blatantly disrespectful, and none of it could be I don't understand how you can defend that without kind of making yourself look like a jerk too.
And one of the things that's really so outrageous about it is that the NCAA is making money off of these women and men who are not getting paid. Some of them are not even getting partial scholarships to even pay. So the fact that they thought so little of these women to, give them box lunches or give them 20 different ways compared to hundreds of different options and different merch that the men are getting is just, it just made me so upset to know that you are, making billions of dollars off of these people, and you don't even have the kindness in your heart to even provide them with the same thing that you're providing the men.
So I don't understand. So what was the NCAA that was responsible for that, or was it the school? I just didn't know. So
it was the NCAA tournament this year is held in a bubble. So the men's tournament they're all sort of in a conference center, and the women's are in a separate conference center. Okay. So it was the NCAA that set the I guess the equipment up and the program.
Wow.
So it was NCAA supplied.
Wow, that's pretty telling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
And so you think all these years after Title IX has passed, that some things would be a no-brainer, and still, unfortunately, we are making similar mistakes.
Wow.
Yeah. So, well, we are close to the end. Oh, Devin, are you raising your hand? Actually raising your hand? Okay, go.
Yes, sorry. What's been on my mind is just like the whole thing with working out. If you compare with Chestnut Hill, our female sports workouts and then our male sports workouts, they're the exact same. It just might not be as heavy, obviously, because females don't necessarily lift as heavy as men. But if you sit and watch, for instance, the lacrosse team workout, they're doing almost the exact same thing that the women's lacrosse team is doing, or even the softball team and baseball team. It's kind of like Shaylin said, a slap in the face with the females. Free weights are free weights. You can do a lot with them. But when you look over into the men, they have like squat racks. You can do a lot more with squat racks. You can do like real deadlifts or main deadlifts. Just like there's just so much more. And then with the food, we're athletes. We are burning calories all day long, and getting a bagged lunch as a female is not going to help us gain or retain our muscle mass. And then we're not going to stay hungry or stay full while we're working out and like playing our games. But I was kind of annoyed when I saw that, because I came from a town that the boys sports, like baseball, would get bigger signs or tryouts, and then like a little plaque for the girls tryouts for softball. And then even in high school, the boys sports were more important than the female sports, which I think is a little unfair. Because if you look at the women's U.S. soccer team and the men's U.S. soccer team, that's another big issue that has happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and Shaylin both sort of touched, upon this. This is a deeper rooted issue than even just the NCAA. But, I think a couple people have made comments, Danielle included, like the NCAA should be doing better. You can't preach, inclusivity and then, turn around and provide those options in a blatant difference. And it's, like you said, not just about the weight or I guess the amount of weight that they could lift, but sheer equipment, cardio equipment, lifting equipment, and so on. So it's hard to hear the inclusivity conversation and equality conversations, and then see how their actions are demonstrated.
Yeah.
Takara.
The NCAA, I was just going to say the NCAA needs a lot of work in a lot of areas, for sure. There's far, far from perfect.
Takara.
Honestly, I feel like I've been having like this conversation about this topic like all this week. Shout out to Mike for that, because he started it. So basically, like, I've literally compared this to the whole situation is basically built off of like society's norms. And like, literally, it's not even just the NCAA, but it's basically off of how society thinks in a sense, because like, it's honestly been since like day one that women have been like belittled, not even like just in like sports, but like in the workforce and things like that. So it's like always been an issue in a sense. And it's disgusting. Like, and I don't necessarily know if it's going to necessarily change, because it's taken this long for things to like start happening to this day. And then like, it would probably take, like, it takes like, took it going into social media for it to like become this big of a topic. And to this day, it's still been like things that have happened in the past that have been just as big and haven't really been resolved, obviously, because we're still having these problems. Like, women are still being belittled into things that men are like, we're on the same type of level in like the careers and sports. Like, we do the same things. We should be given the same treatment, the same privileges and things like that. So it's always, I feel like it's not really necessarily going to change until society kind of changes in a sense.
Well, and you look at women's soccer, how well the U.S. women's soccer team, and they don't get half of what the men get. So, that's another, and professionally for sure too.
I'd like to see them do what they did to the women, to the men next year, and see how bad of a reaction they get then. Because if they did, even if the men and women this year got the same treatment that the girls did, completely different conversation. And I feel like they wouldn't change anything for the women if it happened to both. But I feel like if it happened to the men, no matter what, they'd be complaining so much, and it wouldn't have even been a thought to treat them like that.
Yeah. Can I just throw one thing in? I just think it's interesting that as kind of going back to the societal norms and everything, we keep finding more and more research and we keep digging into this topic and finding the same things that women are physiologically different than men, but as in we are not technically able to put on as much muscle mass, but you can still do all the same training and whatnot and all the benefits and whatever, but there's just a lot more of unconscious biasness towards it all still, because we keep proving everything wrong or whatever, but then it's just still that little thing in the back of everyone's head that there is still biasness there. And I just think that we just need to kind of be a little bit more aware of that as a whole.
Leah, I think that is an excellent point and one that I will close that topic on, because I think we could go on for hours, but we are right about the 1 hour mark. So as we finish up this, I'm going to take us into a little bit of a lighter topic, and I'm going to ask the panelists who has had a lasting impact on your life. So if you're a current student, if there's somebody, a professor, staff member, coach, it's really made a difference. If you want to say for alumni, we may not recognize the name, but still very interested. I'll start with Mara Conroy.
Sure. I guess for me, I'm a transfer student. So this is only my second year at Chestnut Hill. So I'm not that familiar with a lot of people, but I guess one person is my assistant coach. She would just really helped me when I came in, feel comfortable. I know I can go to her about anything, doesn't matter what it is, if it's sports related, if it's not, she just really welcomed me in. And I think that was just really helpful in my transition to Chestnut Hill.
Thanks, Mara. Ashley Watson, who's somebody that has an impact on you in your, I guess, 2 years here?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with Mara. I don't really have an experience with a ton of people on campus because of last year's situation. But I'd say someone that sticks out to me is Coach Egan. I just feel like he's really good at including everyone and making sure you can always go to him. And now that I work in the gym as a little job, I feel like I have gotten to talk to him a lot more, and I know that he's always there for me.
I feel as though the only person I could really say is Mike. That's my coach. Because I've learned more about anything and everything, any topic versus life in general, bowling, everything. He's pretty much molded me from my 3 years because I'm a transfer student, from my 3 years of being here. Literally, he's molded me into the person I am today. And yeah.
Shaylin, would you mind sharing? I know you're probably only 2 months on campus, so that is a tough question. So if it's not somebody at Chestnut Hill, if you wanted to talk about somebody else, that would be okay as well.
I just feel so right now, the people I feel are having the biggest impact on me are my teammates. And I know that sounds cheesy, but my high school did not have they didn't encourage a good teammate bond. It was more encouraging just girls to participate in general. So it's nice to have people that genuinely like the sport and want to be there and aren't just there to sit to say oh, I play a sport, I'm a student athlete, or to get out of class. It's and I feel a lot of them are just making me a better person and a better teammate, and that's gonna in the long run just be really helpful.
That's a great answer. So I'm glad that I didn't cut you short, and I knew that you'd have somebody to add. Devin, let's go to you next.
A person that's had a lasting impact on me would probably be Jess Pulis. She was a senior when I was a freshman. I was only with her for a year, but I knew that she kind of took me under her wing as a freshman. We were both in the outfield all the time. She was my travel buddy. And I'd always tell my parents how much I love her. And they actually made her cry because on her senior day, my dad told her dad what I said about her. But she was always there for me. She would tell me what I'm doing wrong, or just kind of joke around with me, or just made me feel like I had someone other than my parents to go to, although she was off campus, but at Chestnut Hill. We talk not all the time, but we see each other around sometimes. She's at the last 2 senior games. So obviously her own, and then the year after she graduated.
Rachel, do you have somebody who's had an impact on you?
I would say you and Sister Jean, because freshman year I used to have meetings with you every week. And then Sister Jean, because she's so dedicated to our team and every team at Chestnut Hill, and she just is very motivating and like inspires us.
Thanks, Rachel. Sister Jean would absolutely be somebody I would say as well. So she was what is now called FYI. She was my FYI instructor before she went to Peru, and now getting to be, close with her as a faculty member and our faculty athletic rep. It's been incredible. She has such passion and dedication to you students, and it just shines through. We're very fortunate to have the better Sister Jean than Chicago Loyola. Lily Reed, let's go to you. Who's had a lasting impact on you?
I'd say my roommate, Victoria Grillo. I'd say because I came from Texas, so I didn't know anyone. I didn't know what the people were like. I didn't know anything from here. So it was a whole new world. I'm a pretty independent person, so I would say I didn't really need to learn much from anyone, but I'd say she had an impact on me because she made sure I knew that she'd always had my back. Her parents made sure they knew that they loved me and that they are my parents from here just because mine are so far. So every game they would make sure I had some food to eat. They'd make sure I'd go out to eat with them after. They'd always check on me. So I'd say she and her family had the biggest impact on me so far.
We are absolutely so fortunate to have such a close-knit community, that being a great representation of such. Leah Miller, you're our last current student athlete that I'll ask you.
I hate to repeat, but it's got to be Sister Jean. And I almost forgot about her for a second, but just being on the receiving end of her support and just admiration there's nothing that beats that feeling. And she's just amazing.
I could not agree more. There are not enough words to say about Sister Jean. I don't know if Kelly's still with us. Kelly, if you're on, do you want to share maybe who's had a lasting impact? You got your hands full over there.
Sorry. I would say Sister Jean for sure. We actually still keep in touch, and she's seen pictures of all my babies. But also Coach Strobel, who's on here, of course. I think when playing tennis for Coach Strobel, he knew none of us were going to be going professional and just really instilled life lessons in everything that we did. And so, I just appreciate him. So thanks. Thanks, Coach.
Oh, Albert, still getting shout outs. Danielle, would you mind sharing who's had a lasting impact on you?
I agree with Kelly. Coach Strobel Kelly and I know he's a psycho on the court, but it's fine because he was fun and he was motivating and all that great stuff. So he was always awesome. And then Jesse as well. Actually, I have been in touch with Jesse since graduating, and he has kept me more involved with Chestnut Hill post-graduation. I mean, even helped out with my fiance's career and has just always been great to talk to. I appreciate them both.
Also, not enough kind words can be said for Jesse Bowser. That's for sure. Sarah, I don't want to skip you. Who's had a lasting impact on you, Sarah?
Actually, the person who had a lasting impact on me, she is no longer with us, but Sister Mary Dara. I always had a really great relationship with her, and she really influenced, my career as far as moving up in higher ed and how I handled and connected with students. And I always would think of her if I was dealing with someone who was really hard to connect with. And I would just always think of be a good shepherd to this person. And I always thought about that with her. So, and she's somebody, I still have her little prayer card on my desk because she just was really great. So I try to remember that when I, connect with students and move forward in my time at any institution.
Another excellent option. Sister Mary Dara, what a lady. There aren't enough words. I want to thank you all for your time tonight. I want to introduce quickly Jessie Balser, our current athletic director, who is going to do a quick closure, and I'm very grateful for all of your time.
Thank you, Jess. And I don't know how to do anything quick when it comes to talking, but I know Sister Carol is going to be staring a hole in my head if I go too long. First thing I want to say, Jess, you were amazing as a host tonight. We did not even talk about the fact that Jess Day played on our softball team and golfed for me when I was the golf coach and had to play from the men's tees on long golf courses. And she is quite the humble leader today. So I really appreciate what you did for this panel tonight. I'm looking at so many people that are on this screen. As I look, I remember something about almost everybody, which is just such a great feeling. And I want to just say to everyone that we are hoping that Chestnut Hill Athletics continues to, accentuate women in athletics as well as the men. And we want to be at the forefront of that. And I think we have really great coaches, witnessed by Takara's words about Coach Blakeney and Danielle and Kelly Sipocz words about Coach Stroba, two great coaches that were here for a good minute, and leads me to a quote that I heard recently that says, a good coach improves your game, a great coach improves your life. And I think that stood out very well tonight, listening to everyone talk. And again, my door is always open. It's always open to the current students, to alums that have any thoughts of inequity that they want to address. I would love to hear them, because I've never want anyone to leave Chestnut Hill thinking that we were not fair to both men and women. And when I started in 2003, we were the guests. So, I'm very happy to be here. I love that Janice was out here and everyone got to see her exuberance for life and for sport. And I say Janice Kuklick was Mia Hamm before Mia Hamm became the first woman athlete that everyone that actually people wanted to recognize as an athlete, even though she was a woman. And so thank you to everybody. And so it's great to have Sarah Doherty back on campus and to see Kelly Sipocz with her babies and everyone doing so well. So congratulations, everyone. Thank you to the coaches that are here that came out. Thank you to everyone that came out to be a part of this panel. And again, great job, Jess Day.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your time tonight. It's been so amazing to connect it and see so many faces throughout the time. And Janice, I cannot once again thank you enough for the path that you led here at the college. Leadership it does not go unnoticed. So thank you so much, and thank you all for being here. I appreciate your time this evening. Have a great night.
Thank you.
You
Thanks,
too.
everybody.
Thanks, Jeff.
Go Griffins.
Thank you.